There's nothing more debilitating about a disability than the way people treat you over it. Solange Nicole. Ableism is defined as the act of discrimination against someone because of their disability. This is classified as a social problem, but it is not given enough attention. We are unaware of the reality these disabled people go through in their daily lives. It is extremely harmful for the victims, but it's even more harmful when we do not realize we're supporting this problem, which seems to be the biggest problem. When we offend someone with a disability, we're supporting ableism. And by doing actions like saying the word retarded, you can start being an ableist. You can also see that sometimes people look at disabled people differently, as if they need to be fixed, or they treat them differently and not let them do normal activities. In some cases, disabled people actually cannot do things by themselves, but it does not make it okay to assume every one of them cannot. We would like to present to you some cases of disabled people and the effects of ableism in their lives. The first one is about a woman named Izzy, who has dyslexia. She still remembers the day when she was in third grade and asked a boy how to spell something. The response of the boy to her was that she was an idiot. Thanks to him, she felt bad about herself for something she could not control. The second case is about Vanessa, who uses a wheelchair. She has mentioned how in restaurants, waiters ask someone else what she wants to order. She said that the waiters look at her as if she was a baby, when she's actually an adult. As you can see, they're not treated equally compared to someone who does not present a disability. Victims of ableism can be compared with victims of other types of discrimination, such as racism or sexism. If you analyze it closely, you could notice that the victims of sexism and racism are treated in a very similar way to how victims of ableism are treated. They are all considered inferior. People often assume that they cannot speak up for themselves, or that they are more vulnerable. For some reason, even if they have seen very similar impacts, people do not care about ableism as much as they care about racism or sexism. When you are thinking of social movements, you're more likely to think about the ones that are related to sexism or racism, such as the Black Lives Matter movement that has been going on primarily in the US, or the Paro Nacional in Mexico. But you probably would not think about any ableist movement. This is because, as we mentioned earlier, most people are unaware of ableism, and consequently, they are unaware of the attempts to abolish it. Most people do not know about ableism, then anyone can be ableist. So we would like to share with you some actions that can make you an ableist without even knowing. For example, using the disabled-only park spaces if you do not need them. Using terms like crazy or stupid if they have a mental disability. Looking down on someone just because you feel superior than them for not having a disability. Asking questions to them about their disability in a sarcastic tone. Or mentioning how brave they are because of what they have to go through. Of course, there are many more characteristics of an ableist, but these are just a few of the most common ones. Having mentioned examples of how someone's actions can be ableist, we would like to ask you to reflect on your past actions. Remember the times you had an interaction with a disabled person? Did you speak to them as if they were a baby? Did you simplify your vocabulary and slow down your words? Did you kneel to them to speak to them? Did you treat them as you would with any other person? These are some questions that we should ask ourselves if we have been around disabled people. And when we are in the presence of a person with disabilities, we need to remember that our behavior should never change. You might think that changing our behavior is important in order to properly respect the person. But it is important to draw a line in between being respectful towards someone and treating them as if they were a child. We should just treat them as if they were non-disabled people. Just put yourself in the shoes of a disabled person. How would you feel if you were eating on a diner with your family, having a great time, but when the waiter takes your order, he asks your parents, "What would you like to eat?" You're seen as a person with disability before you're seen as who you truly are. With almost every interaction you have with someone being related to your disability. By treating disabled people differently, you are telling them that they are fragile and less capable. You may think that this is an exaggeration, but think of this. When you carry an object made out of glass, you're extremely careful and delicate with your movements. This analogy applies to how you treat disabled people. Your actions might not have evil intentions, but by being over careful with how you interact with a disabled person, you are isolating them and telling them that their disability makes them different. Having explained the problem and the ways that you can be an ableist, we would like to present actual solutions or ways you can avoid everyday ableism that you might not even be aware of. These solutions were taught by Erin Tatum, a member of the disabled community, so we are sure that these are backed up by experience. If a person with a disability needs to use an elevator, then take the stairs. It might seem obvious, but for most people it is not. Do not use handicapped restrooms. Do not assume someone's intellectual capacity based on their physical capabilities or the lack thereof. Do not address disabled people through an able-bodied person. It is not right to assume that a disabled person is not capable of answering your questions. Do not ask them what happened. Never assume that a disabled person wishes to be able-bodied. For obvious reasons, this idea implies that being disabled is a bad thing that needs to be fixed. Do not call them inspirational. You're essentially saying that you would find their way of life insufferable. And of course, remember, people with disabilities are people first. We truly hope you use this information in the best way possible. And remember it for when you interact with disabled people. Changing the way you address people with disabilities and your mannerism around them might not seem like much. But remember that we are starting a change reaction. We urge you to present this information to your family and friends so that they can also help in achieving the change that people with disabilities deserve. A change cannot be made without the help of everyone. So we would be grateful if you could help combat ableism. Or if you at least remember that a disabled person is also a person. Thank you.